Imagine creating a lifelike AI version of your loved one, only to discover that the true connection you seek was hidden in a box all along. Stay tuned as one man uncovers the hidden treasure that brings him true closure after a tragic loss. Mike's earliest memories were filled with the sound of metal clinking softly against wood, the smell of fresh sawdust, and the soothing voice of his grandfather, Tom. Ever since he was a child, the two had worked together in Tom's garage on their special project, a collection of metal model cars. It had started when Mike was just 5 years old, sitting on a high stool, watching in awe as Tom, with careful precision, bent and shaped the tiny parts. It was a project that spanned years, each car representing a different era, a different lesson in craftsmanship and patience. Every birthday or holiday, they would make a little more progress. Mike would eagerly wait for the next school break or summer vacation so they could add another piece to the collection. The project became a tradition, a ritual they shared, filled with laughter, stories, and the passing down of Tom's wisdom. As Mike grew older, life became busier, and their time in the garage became less frequent. Schoolwork, extracurriculars, and later, college responsibilities started taking up more of Mike's time. The cars were still there, waiting patiently on the shelves, unfinished, but never forgotten. Each time they worked on a new model, Mike felt the same excitement he had as a child, but the moments were shorter now, more rushed. Tom never showed disappointment, even as the hours they spent together dwindled. Instead, he smiled through each small session, understanding that life was pulling his grandson in new directions. Still, every year, they would make a little progress, no matter how small. It wasn't just about the cars, though. The real heart of those afternoons in the garage was the time they spent talking about life, dreams, fears, the future, things that mattered deeply to both of them. Tom was Mike's guide in life, always there with a story or advice, always knowing the right thing to say. But then came the opportunity that changed everything. Mike had been accepted into a prestigious 6-month course in another state. It was a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and he knew he couldn't pass it up. The first person he told wasn't his friends or even his parents. It was his grandfather. Mike had rushed over to Tom's house with the acceptance letter in hand, the excitement bubbling over in him. Tom, as always, had been nothing but proud. He'd smiled warmly as Mike handed him the letter, his eyes gleaming with pride. "You've got a bright future ahead of you, kid," Tom had said. "I knew you'd go far." But there was a sadness behind Mike's excitement. He realized this course meant that he wouldn't be able to visit home or his grandfather for 6 months, the longest time he would ever be apart from the man who had been his closest confidant. The realization gnawed at him, especially as the weeks before his departure grew shorter. Before he left, Mike and Tom had planned to take a special trip together, just the two of them. They had talked about it for years, a road trip across the countryside, visiting the places Tom had once traveled when he was younger. But with the chaos of Mike's preparations for his course, the trip was postponed indefinitely, something they promised to pick up once Mike returned. When the day finally came for Mike to leave for the course, he felt a strange sadness that he couldn't quite shake. The excitement of the opportunity was dulled by the knowledge that he would be far from home, far from his grandfather. As he boarded the plane, he glanced down at his phone, smiling at the last message he had received from Tom earlier that morning. "I have a surprise for you when you get back. We'll catch up on everything we missed, I promise." Those words lingered in his mind as the plane took off, the pull of excitement and guilt battling in his chest. Throughout his time away, Mike made sure to call his grandfather every day. The conversations became their way of keeping the bond strong, of making up for the time they couldn't spend together in person. Tom would ask about the course, and Mike would eagerly share everything he was learning, always ending their chats with the same promise: "When I get back, we'll finish the trip." It wasn't quite the same as being in the garage together, but those daily calls helped ease the ache in Mike's chest. It was his way of reclaiming the time that felt like it was slipping away. Every call ended with Tom's teasing reminder: "Don't forget, I have a surprise for you. You'll love it. I just know it." As the 6 months came to an end, Mike felt an overwhelming sense of anticipation. He couldn't wait to return home, to see his family, and especially to see his grandfather. The conversations they still needed to have, the road trip. It was all waiting for him. And then, of course, there was that mysterious surprise. On the morning of his last day in the program, Mike spoke to Tom one final time before his flight home. The conversation was brief, but filled with the excitement of the reunion that was just hours away. "Can't wait to see you, Grandpa," Mike had said, smiling through the phone. "Same here, kiddo," Tom replied. "I'll have the surprise ready when you walk through the door. It's something really special." Those were the last words they exchanged. As Mike sat on the plane, making his way back home, a sense of unease began to settle in his chest. It wasn't anything specific, just a strange heaviness, like something was wrong, though he couldn't pinpoint why. He tried to push it aside, chalking it up to the exhaustion of the last 6 months, but the feeling persisted. When the plane landed, that unease turned to dread. As the taxi pulled up to his house, Mike saw ambulances parked outside. His heart sank. The air felt thick with panic as he threw open the door and rushed toward the house. His parents were standing on the porch, their faces pale, streaked with tears. And there, on the stretcher, was a body covered by a white sheet. Mike stopped in his tracks, everything around him blurring into the background. He knew instantly it was his grandfather. Tom had suffered a tragic accident, a fall that ended his life just hours before Mike's return. The shock was numbing, but the pain that followed was unlike anything Mike had ever experienced. It felt as though a part of him had been ripped away, leaving an empty, gaping wound. The days after Tom's death passed in a haze of grief and guilt. Mike couldn't stop thinking about the trip they had never taken, and the surprise that would remain a mystery forever. His heart ached for all the moments they had missed, for the future that had been stolen from them. He felt as though he had let his grandfather down. In the midst of his despair, Mike sought solace in the only way he knew how, through technology. He was a talented programmer, after all, and he had a wealth of recordings, emails, and memories saved from his grandfather. If he couldn't bring Tom back, maybe he could recreate him. The AI became his new companion, a way to hold on to the man he couldn't bear to lose. But as time passed, Mike began to notice something was missing. The conversations lacked the warmth, the unpredictability, the life that had made his grandfather so special. It felt hollow, like an echo of the real thing. No matter how advanced the technology, it couldn't replicate the soul of who Tom was. And that's when Mike realized that he couldn't move on until he faced the truth. His grandfather was gone, and no machine could bring him back. One night, after another frustrating conversation with the AI, Mike found himself staring at a photo of him and Tom in the garage. It was an old picture taken when they were still working on the model cars. The sight of it stirred something deep inside him. A memory, long forgotten, of his grandfather building a secret compartment in the garage when Mike was a child. Could that be where Tom had hidden the surprise? With newfound determination, Mike rushed to the garage. It was just as they had left it, the tools neatly arranged, the projects half-finished, dust coating the surfaces. He knelt down by the wall and found the panel, just as he remembered. His hands trembled as he pried it open. Inside was a small wooden box, wrapped in an old cloth. Mike's heart raced as he pulled it out and set it on the workbench. Slowly, he unwrapped the cloth and opened the box. Inside were the metal model cars, each one completed. His grandfather had finished them while Mike was away, and resting on top of the cars was a letter. Mike carefully unfolded the paper and began to read. "Surprise! I told you I had something special waiting for you when you got back. And here it is. You remember how we started this project when you were just a little kid, right? It feels like just yesterday we were sitting in this garage covered in sawdust and figuring out how to put those tiny pieces together. Every year we chipped away at it a little at a time, and now I've gone ahead and finished them while you were away, just in time for your return. I couldn't wait to see the look on your face when you opened this box and saw the whole collection completed. Every single car is here, finished with all the care and attention to detail that we always put into them. But the real treasure isn't just these cars, Sam. It's the time we spent together building them. All those afternoons talking about life, cracking jokes, and figuring things out. That's what this project was really about. So, here's my gift to you. Not just the cars, but the memories and the lessons we shared along the way. Every car holds a story, just like every moment we've spent together. I hope they remind you of all the good times we've had and all the laughs we shared in this old garage. You've always made me proud, and you're going to keep doing amazing things, I know it. These cars may be finished, but your journey is just getting started. Keep moving forward, keep building, whether it's cars or your dreams. You've got everything you need to make it happen. I can't wait to see what you do next. And remember, I'll always be cheering you on every step of the way. With all my love, Grandpa Tom. Tears filled Mike's eyes as he finished the letter. The guilt and sorrow that had weighed so heavily on him began to lift. His grandfather had understood him better than he had ever realized. Even in death, Tom had found a way to comfort him, to give him peace. Mike looked down at the completed cars. His grandfather had finished the project they had started together, leaving him not just with a collection of model cars, but with the knowledge that their time together had been enough. The AI that Mike had created, the one he had poured so much effort into, now seemed distant and unnecessary. His grandfather wasn't in the machine. He was in the memories, the lessons, and the love they had shared. Mike carefully placed the letter back in the box and stood up, a smile breaking through his tears. He knew now what his grandfather had been trying to tell him all along. Life moves forward, but love stays with you forever. As Mike stepped out of the garage, the sun setting in the distance, he felt lighter. The journey they had started together was complete, and as he looked up at the sky, he knew his grandfather would always be there, watching over him, guiding him, just as he always had. Wow, what a journey Mike went through to find true closure. It just goes to show that no matter how advanced technology becomes, nothing can replace the real moments we share with the people we love.